The gunshots echoed through the valley like angry thunder, sending flocks of startled birds into the cloudless Montana sky. Savannah Jensen ducked behind a fallen log, her heart hammering against her ribs as bullets splintered the wood above her head. It was 1879, and she'd never imagined her journey west would end like this, pinned down by bandits who had already murdered her traveling companions and stolen everything of value from their wagon train. Dust filled her lungs as she crawled desperately through the underbrush. Her pale blue dress was torn and stained with dirt and blood, some of it her own, most belonging to the elderly couple who had taken her in after her parents died of cholera back in Missouri. The Wilsons had been good people. They didn't deserve to die like that, gunned down while begging for mercy. Savannah bit back a sob. Grief would have to wait. Survival came first. "I see movement over there," a harsh voice called out. The girls heading for the creek. More gunfire erupted, closer this time. Savannah scrambled forward, her fingers digging into the earth. A sharp pain lanced through her side as she tumbled down a small embankment, landing hard against a cluster of rocks. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs. For a moment she lay still, fighting to breathe through the white-hot agony spreading across her torso. "Find her." The bandit leader's voice carried through the trees. "Nobody leaves witnesses." Savannah forced herself to move, each breath a struggle. Something was wrong inside her body, terribly wrong. Still, she managed to pull herself beneath a thicket of brambles, tears streaming down her face as thorns tore at her skin. The sound of men crashing through the underbrush grew louder. She can't have gone far. Spread out. The sunlight filtering through the leaves suddenly darkened. Savannah looked up to see a silhouette against the sky, a man on horseback, motionless and watchful on the ridge above. For a heart-stopping moment, she thought it was another bandit. Then she saw the wide-brimmed hat, the rifle held ready across his saddle, and the badge catching the sunlight on his vest, her salvation or another threat. She had no choice but to risk it. "Help," she tried to call, but it emerged as little more than a whisper. She gathered her remaining strength. "Please, help me." The rider's head turned sharply. He'd heard her. In one fluid motion, he dismounted and moved toward her position with the silent grace of a mountain lion. As he drew closer, Savannah could see him more clearly, tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes that scanned the terrain with practiced vigilance. "Where are you?" he whispered, crouching low. "Here," Savannah breathed, pushing aside a branch to reveal her hiding place. The man's expression hardened when he saw her condition. Without a word, he crawled into the thicket, careful not to disturb the surrounding vegetation. "I'm Deputy Marshal Aaron Northwood," he said softly. "Are you hurt, miss?" "They killed everyone," Savannah managed between shallow breaths. "The Wilsons, the Thompsons, little Mary Hughes, all of them." The marshal's eyes darkened. "How many attackers?" "5, maybe 6. They ambushed us at dawn." A twig snapped nearby. Aaron's hand moved to his pistol as he peered through the foliage. 20 yards away, 2 men with bandanas covering their faces were moving through the trees, rifles ready. "Stay absolutely still," Aaron whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "I'll come back for you." Before she could protest, he slipped away like a shadow, leaving her alone with her pain. Savannah pressed her hand against her side, wincing at the tenderness there. Moments later, gunshots erupted from deeper in the forest. She counted 6 shots, followed by shouting and the sound of running feet. Time seemed to stretch impossibly long. The pain in her side worsened, and Savannah found it increasingly difficult to stay conscious. Just as darkness began to creep into the edges of her vision, the brambles parted again. Aaron knelt beside her, his expression grim but calm. "It's safe now. They've fled, but they'll be back with reinforcements once they realize what happened to their friends." He reached for her, then hesitated. "I need to move you, it might hurt." Savannah nodded weakly. When his hands slid beneath her shoulders, she couldn't suppress a cry of pain. "My ribs are broken," she cried, tears springing fresh to her eyes. The cowboy lifted her gently and said, "No one will hurt you again." His voice held such quiet conviction that Savannah almost believed him. As he carried her from the thicket, she caught sight of 2 motionless forms on the ground nearby. Aaron had been busy while he was gone. My horse is just up the ridge, he told her. I have a cabin not far from here. You'll be safe there while I go for the doctor. They'll kill you too, Savannah whispered, her fingers clutching weakly at his shirt. There are more of them. The Blackwell gang has been terrorizing this territory for months, Aaron said grimly, but they've never faced me before. Despite the pain, Savannah studied his face as he carried her. He was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps 28 or 30, with a strong jawline shadowed by stubble and eyes the color of a summer storm. A thin scar ran along his right cheek, disappearing into his beard. He moved with deliberate care, clearly trying to minimize her discomfort. I'm Savannah, she said, feeling strangely that he should know her name if she died in his arms. Savannah Jensen. You're going to be all right, Miss Jensen, Aaron assured her as they reached his horse, a magnificent chestnut stallion that stood perfectly still as its master approached with his burden. Mounting while holding her proved challenging, but Aaron managed it with surprising gentleness. Once settled in the saddle, he positioned Savannah across his lap, supporting her back with one arm while taking the reins with his free hand. Hold on to me, he instructed. I'll try to keep to level ground, but there might be some rough patches. The journey was mercifully brief, but agonizing nonetheless. Each hoofbeat sent fresh waves of pain through Savannah's body. She drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes coming to with her face pressed against Aaron's chest, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat oddly comforting. His cabin appeared suddenly through the trees, a sturdy structure of hewn logs with a stone chimney and a small corral off to one side. A second horse, a dappled gray, nickered in greeting as they approached. Almost there, Aaron murmured. Inside, the cabin was spare but neat. A cast-iron stove dominated one wall while a narrow bed occupied another. A table and 2 chairs stood in the center of the room, and shelves lined with books covered much of the remaining wall space. Aaron laid Savannah carefully on the bed. I need to examine your injuries, with your permission. She nodded, too exhausted to feel embarrassment. With deft fingers, he unbuttoned the top of her dress just enough to expose her ribs without compromising her modesty. His touch was clinical and respectful as he gently probed her side. 2, maybe 3 broken ribs, he said grimly. And some nasty bruising. You're lucky they didn't puncture a lung. Doesn't feel lucky, Savannah whispered. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. No, I suppose not. He moved to the stove where a kettle sat. I'll make a poultice for the bruising. It won't fix the breaks, but it'll help with the pain until I can fetch Doc Simmons. You can't go back out there, Savannah protested. Those men will be hunting for both of us, Aaron countered, his voice hard. Better I find them first. While water heated on the stove, he mixed herbs from jars on a shelf. The scent of arnica and comfrey filled the small cabin. Aaron worked with practiced efficiency, suggesting this wasn't his first time treating injuries. Were you a doctor during the war? Savannah asked, watching him. Aaron's hands paused momentarily. No, field medic with the 7th Cavalry. You learn fast or men die. He applied the poultice with gentle pressure, then bound her ribs with strips of clean linen. The tight wrapping made breathing easier, though the pain remained. I need to report what happened and organize a search for other survivors, Aaron said, wiping his hands on a towel. The nearest town is Elk Hollow, about 2 hours' ride from here. What if they come while you're gone? Aaron crossed to a chest at the foot of the bed. He opened it and removed a small revolver, which he placed on the table beside her. You know how to use this, Savannah nodded. Her father had taught her to shoot when she was 12. Yes, good, keep it close. I'll bar the door and windows before I leave, but if anyone tries to enter. He didn't finish the sentence. I understand. Aaron gathered a few supplies, including extra ammunition for his own weapons. Before leaving, he brought Savannah water and jerky from his stores. I'll be back before nightfall, he promised. Try to rest. After he left, Savannah lay awake despite her exhaustion, the small revolver clutched in her hand. The cabin was eerily quiet except for the occasional creak of timber and the distant call of birds. She thought of the Wilsons, who had been so kind to her, and of little Mary Hughes with her gap-toothed smile and endless questions. All gone now, their dreams of a new life in Montana territory ended by men who valued gold over human lives. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks as she stared at the rough-hewn ceiling. She had left St. Louis with such hope, eager to escape the memories of her parents' painful deaths and the unwelcome advances of her father's business partner. Now she was alone again, injured and hunted in a strange wilderness. The sound of approaching hoofbeats jolted Savannah from her grief. She clutched the revolver tighter, her heart racing as she tried to determine how many riders approached. To her relief, she heard only one horse, and moments later Aaron's voice called out, "It's Northwood, Miss Jensen. I'm coming in." The relief that flooded through her was surprising in its intensity. Aaron entered, followed by an older man carrying a leather medical bag. "This is Dr. Simmons," Aaron introduced. "He's going to take proper care of those ribs." The doctor was a gruff but gentle man who examined Savannah thoroughly before confirming Aaron's diagnosis. 3 broken ribs, considerable bruising and exhaustion, he pronounced. "You did well with the binding, Marshal. Probably saved her from further injury during that ride." "Will she recover fully?" Aaron asked, concern evident in his voice. "Given time and proper care, yes. No riding or strenuous activity for at least 6 weeks." "The ribs need complete rest to heal properly." The doctor turned to Savannah. "Young lady, you're fortunate. Broken ribs can be dangerous if they shift and damage internal organs." "Thank you, doctor," Savannah said sincerely. After giving Aaron detailed instructions and leaving medicines for pain and inflammation, Dr. Simmons departed with a promise to return in a week to check on her progress. Once they were alone, Aaron pulled a chair beside the bed. "I have news, both good and bad." Savannah braced herself. "Tell me." "The good news is we found 3 survivors from your wagon train, the Henderson family. They hid in a hollowed tree trunk during the attack. They're safe in town now." Relief washed over her. The Hendersons had 2 young children, at least they had been spared, and the bad news. Aaron's expression darkened. "The Blackwell gang has been joined by the Sutton brothers. That puts their number at close to a dozen now. They've been asking questions in saloons about a girl who got away. They're hunting you specifically." "Me? Why?" "You're the only witness who got a good look at them. Plus," Aaron hesitated, "Mr. Henderson mentioned you were carrying something valuable, something your father left you." Savannah's hand moved instinctively to her throat where a thin chain disappeared beneath her collar. "My locket." "It contains a map." Aaron leaned forward. "A map to what?" "My father was a geologist before he died. He discovered a silver vein in the mountains near Helena. The map shows its location." She pulled the chain from beneath her dress, revealing a simple gold locket. "The bandits must have learned about it somehow." Aaron frowned thoughtfully. "That explains their persistence. Silver could make them rich men. The map was meant for me, my inheritance. Father wanted me to have security after he was gone." Tears welled in Savannah's eyes. "Now people have died because of it." "No," Aaron said firmly. "People died because of men's greed. That's not on you." His words offered little comfort as Savannah considered the price already paid for her father's discovery. "What happens now? You'll stay here while you heal," Aaron decided. "It's safer than town, where Blackwell's men could easily find you. I've sent telegrams to territorial authorities requesting reinforcements, but it could be weeks before they arrive." "I can't impose on you for weeks," Savannah protested. Aaron smiled slightly. "Miss Jensen, this territory is my responsibility, and right now you're my most vulnerable citizen. Besides," he added with a hint of wryness, "I can sleep on the floor. Wouldn't be the first time." Despite her distress, Savannah found herself smiling back. "Thank you, Deputy Marshal." "I promise not to be a burden." "Aaron," he corrected gently. "If we're to be housemates, you might as well use my given name." "Aaron," she echoed, the name feeling strangely intimate on her tongue. "Then you must call me Savannah." That night, despite Aaron's protests, Savannah insisted he take his bed while she rested on a pallet he made up near the stove. Her ribs ached too much for proper sleep, and she found herself studying her reluctant host in the dim light of the banked fire. Even in sleep, Aaron maintained a certain vigilance, one hand resting near his holstered pistol. his body positioned between her and the door. There was a nobility about him that reminded Savannah of the knights in the storybooks her mother used to read to her. Yet there was something haunted in his eyes, too, a shadow that suggested he carried burdens of his own. Morning brought a new rhythm to the cabin. Aaron rose before dawn, tended his horses, and prepared a simple breakfast of coffee and johnny cakes. He helped Savannah to sit at the table, respecting her insistence on joining him rather than eating in bed. "I've been thinking about your situation," he said, refilling her coffee cup. "Once you're healed enough to travel, we should get you to Helena. The territorial governor has a house there. You'd be safe until this business with Blackwell is resolved." Savannah stared into her cup. "And the silver mine," Aaron considered this, "that's for you to decide. It's your inheritance." "It feels tainted now," she admitted. "So many deaths. Silver doesn't kill people, men with guns do." Aaron's voice was soft but firm. "Your father wanted to provide for you. There's no shame in claiming what's rightfully yours." His understanding surprised her. Savannah had expected him to condemn her for possessing something that had caused such bloodshed. Instead, he seemed to grasp the complexity of her feelings without judgment. "Tell me about yourself," she said, changing the subject. "How does a man become a deputy marshal in Montana Territory?" Aaron's eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. "By making too many enemies to stay in one place, mostly." "That doesn't sound like the whole truth." "It rarely is." He sighed, relenting. "After the war, I drifted, tried ranching in Texas for a while, but the drought took everything. Worked as a town sheriff in Kansas until I crossed the wrong cattle baron. Came north hoping for a fresh start." He shrugged. "Marshal Donnelly was looking for deputies who could handle themselves. I fit the bill. And do you like it, this life?" Aaron seemed to consider the question seriously. "It suits me. I'm good with a gun and better at reading people, not much for farming or mining." A shadow crossed his face. "Not much for putting down roots either." "Because of the enemies, partly." He didn't elaborate, and Savannah didn't press. The days that followed established a tentative routine. Aaron would leave early to patrol, returning by midday to check on Savannah. He brought books from town to occupy her time and news of the ongoing search for the Blackwell gang. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire while Aaron cleaned his weapons, and Savannah sewed repairs into clothing he'd neglected for too long. Conversation came easier than either expected. Aaron spoke of his childhood in Pennsylvania, his father's smithy, and the sister who had married a missionary and moved to China. Savannah told him about growing up in St. Louis, her father's geological expeditions, and her mother's love of music. "She played the piano beautifully," Savannah recalled one evening, a week into her stay. "Father used to say she could charm the birds from the trees with her sonatas." "You must miss them terribly," Aaron said, his eyes gentle in the firelight. "Every day." "But it gets easier to remember the good times now." Savannah smiled sadly. "When they first died, all I could think about was how they suffered at the end. The cholera was merciless." Aaron nodded, understanding in his gaze. "War taught me that same hard lesson. You can't control how people leave this world. You can only honor how they lived in it." "Is that why you became a lawman, to honor life?" Aaron considered this, his hands pausing in their work of oiling his saddle. "Maybe. Or maybe I just couldn't figure out how to live a normal life after seeing so much death." His honesty touched something deep within Savannah. She reached across the small space between them, briefly resting her hand on his arm. "Thank you for saving mine." The moment lingered between them, fragile and charged with unspoken meaning. Aaron finally cleared his throat and returned to his task, but something had shifted in the atmosphere of the cabin. On the 10th day of her recovery, Dr. Simmons pronounced Savannah to be healing well. "The bruising is fading nicely, and the ribs are knitting together as they should," he said after examining her. "Another month of taking it easy and you'll be good as new." After the doctor left, Aaron brought news that made Savannah's blood run cold. "Blackwell's men attacked a stagecoach yesterday," he said grimly. "They're getting desperate, taking bigger risks. The word is they've offered a reward for information about you." "How much?" Savannah asked, her voice barely audible. $500. Enough to tempt a lot of folks in these hard times. Savannah's hands trembled as she absorbed this. No one in town knows I'm here, right? Only Doc Simmons, and he'd die before betraying a patient. Aaron moved to the window, scanning the tree line as had become his habit. Still, we need to be more cautious. I think we should move you to a different location. Where? I have a friend Samuel running elk. He's Northern Cheyenne, lives with his family in a hidden valley about a day's ride from here. Blackwell's men wouldn't think to look for you there, and even if they did, they'd never find the place without a guide. Savannah felt a flutter of apprehension. Would his family welcome a stranger? Samuel's wife is White, a schoolteacher from Boston. They'd welcome anyone who needs shelter. Aaron smiled slightly. Besides, Samuel owes me. I saved his brother from a hanging in Elk Hollow 2 years back. The plan was set in motion. They would leave at first light, traveling cross-country to avoid the main trails. Aaron spent the evening preparing supplies and teaching Savannah how to use signals if they became separated. That night, Savannah found sleep elusive. The prospect of leaving the cabin, which had become a sanctuary of sorts, filled her with both dread and a strange sense of loss. She had grown accustomed to Aaron's quiet presence, the rhythms of their shared days, and the comfort of knowing he was nearby. Near midnight, a floorboard creaked, and Savannah opened her eyes to see Aaron standing by the window, rifle in hand. "What is it?" she whispered. "Probably nothing," he answered without turning. "Thought I saw movement in the trees." Savannah pushed herself up, ignoring the twinge in her ribs. "Blackwell's men, more likely a deer. Still." He turned toward her, his expression grave in the moonlight. "If anything happens, there's a trapdoor beneath the bearskin rug. It leads to a root cellar. Hide there and don't come out unless you hear me call for you." The seriousness in his voice sent a chill through her. "Aaron, it's just a precaution," he assured her, his voice softening. "Get some rest. We have a long ride tomorrow." Savannah lay back down, but sleep remained elusive. She watched as Aaron maintained his vigil at the window, his silhouette outlined by starlight. There was something profoundly comforting about his presence, a steadiness that made her feel protected in a way she hadn't since her father died. The realization that she was developing feelings for the taciturn lawman came as no surprise. What startled her was the intensity of those feelings. In less than 2 weeks, Aaron Northwood had become the center of her world, her protector, her confidant, perhaps even her future. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. Dawn arrived without incident, and Aaron's tension eased as they prepared to depart. He helped Savannah onto his second horse, the dappled gray mare named Pepper, adjusting the stirrups to accommodate her shorter legs. "She's gentle but responsive," he explained. "Just keep a light hand on the reins." Aaron led the way on his chestnut stallion, Rusty, following game trails and shallow creek beds to mask their trail. They rode in silence for the most part, Aaron constantly scanning their surroundings while Savannah focused on managing the pain in her ribs. By midday, they had covered considerable ground, climbing into pine-covered foothills that offered better vantage points and more places to conceal themselves. Aaron called a halt beside a small spring, helping Savannah dismount with careful hands. "How are you holding up?" he asked, studying her face with concern. "Better than expected," Savannah answered honestly. "The binding helps." They ate a simple meal of jerky and hard biscuits, washing it down with cool spring water. As they rested in the dappled shade, Aaron pointed out landmarks in the distance. "See that notch in the ridge line? That's Buffalo Pass. Samuel's Valley lies just beyond it. We should reach it by sunset if we keep a steady pace." Savannah nodded, then hesitated. "Aaron, what happens after, when my ribs are fully healed and the Blackwell gang is caught?" The question hung between them, weighted with unspoken possibilities. Aaron's eyes met hers, and for a moment, Savannah thought she glimpsed something vulnerable in their depths. "That would depend on what you want," he said finally. "Helena has opportunities for a young woman of education. Or you could file a claim on your father's silver mine." "And if what I want isn't in Helena?" Savannah pressed, her heart pounding. Before Aaron could answer, Rusty snorted and tossed his head, ears pricked forward in alarm. In one fluid motion, Aaron was on his feet, rifle in hand. "Get to the horses," he said quietly. "Now." Savannah didn't question him. She moved as quickly as her ribs allowed, untying Pepper's reins from the low branch where Aaron had secured them. Aaron did the same for Rusty, his movements deliberate and unhurried despite the tension radiating from him. "When I say ride, head straight for that line of aspens," he murmured, pointing to a stand of white-trunked trees about 200 yards away. "Don't stop until you reach them, no matter what you hear. Understand?" Savannah nodded, her mouth dry with fear. They mounted silently. Aaron positioned himself between Savannah and whatever had alarmed the horses. For long moments, nothing moved except the leaves stirring in the gentle breeze. Then a twig snapped somewhere to their left. "Ride," Aaron commanded, slapping Pepper's flank. The mare leaped forward. Savannah clung to the saddle horn, pain lancing through her ribs as she bounced in the saddle. Behind her, gunshots cracked through the forest silence. She resisted the desperate urge to look back, focusing instead on the aspens growing larger with each stride of Pepper's powerful legs. More shots rang out, followed by a man's scream of pain. Savannah's fear for Aaron nearly overwhelmed her, but she kept riding, trusting in his skill and his command. The aspens were only yards away when a mounted figure burst from the trees to her right, cutting off her path. Pepper reared in surprise, nearly unseating Savannah. She grabbed the mare's mane to steady herself, gasping as fresh pain bloomed in her side. The rider was a rough-looking man with a week's growth of beard and a scar that pulled one eyelid into a permanent squint. His revolver was pointed directly at her. "Miss Jensen, I presume," he drawled. "You've led us on quite a chase." Savannah's mind raced. Aaron had taught her to never draw a weapon unless she intended to use it, and the small revolver tucked in her belt would be useless against a man already aiming at her. "Mr. Blackwell?" she guessed, playing for time. The man chuckled. "Flattered, madam, but no, name's Sutton, Illy Sutton. Blackwell sent me to find you and that pretty little map you're carrying." More hoofbeats approached from behind. Savannah risked a glance over her shoulder and saw two more riders emerging from the trees. Of Aaron, there was no sign. "Where's the marshal?" Sutton demanded, noticing her look. "I don't know what you're talking about," Savannah lied. "I'm alone." Sutton's face darkened. "Don't play games with me, girl. We know Northwood's been hiding you. Jackson and Miller are probably dealing with him right now." The casual way he spoke of dealing with Aaron made Savannah's blood run cold. She straightened in the saddle, ignoring the pain in her ribs. "What do you want from me?" "The map, for starters," Sutton said, extending his free hand. "Then you're coming with us. Blackwell wants to make sure you can't identify any of us to the authorities." Savannah touched the locket at her throat. "And if I refuse," Sutton's smile was chilling, "then I'll take it off your corpse. Makes no difference to me, though Blackwell would prefer you alive. He's got plans for pretty girls like you." The implication turned Savannah's stomach. She knew what fate awaited her if she surrendered, a fate worse than death, followed by death itself once Blackwell tired of her. "All right," she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "You can have the map." Slowly, she lifted the chain from around her neck, the gold locket glinting in the sunlight. Sutton urged his horse closer, his eyes fixed greedily on the prize. As he reached for it, Savannah let it drop, forcing him to lean down. In that moment of distraction, she kicked Pepper's flanks hard and yanked the reins sharply left. The mare responded instantly, surging forward and knocking into Sutton's horse. The outlaw cursed, his shot going wild as he struggled to regain his balance. Savannah rode hard, weaving through the aspens. Behind her, she heard Sutton bellowing orders to his men. The forest was her only advantage now, the close-set trees making it difficult for riders to maintain speed or aim accurately. A bullet splintered bark inches from her head. Another tore through her skirt, missing her leg by a hair's breadth. Savannah bent low over Pepper's neck, using the horse's body as a shield while urging her to greater speed. The trees began to thin, revealing a steeper slope ahead. Savannah's heart sank. In open terrain, she would be an easy target. She reined Pepper toward a denser patch of forest to her right, hoping to lose her pursuers in the undergrowth. The sharp crack of rifle fire from ahead brought Pepper to a skidding halt. Savannah looked up in despair, expecting to see more of Blackwell's men cutting off her escape. Instead, she saw Aaron. He stood braced against a boulder, rifle steady as he fired again. Behind her, a man cried out in pain. "Savannah, come to me," Aaron called. She didn't need to be told twice. Pepper seemed to understand the urgency as well, picking her way swiftly up the slope toward Aaron's position. "3 riders," Savannah gasped as she reached him. "Sutton and 2 others." Aaron nodded grimly. "I dealt with 2 back at the spring. That leaves 3. He reached up to help her dismount. "Stay behind this rock. If they rush us, use this." He pressed a shotgun into her hands. "You don't need to aim, just point and pull both triggers." The weight of the weapon was comforting in a primitive way. Savannah positioned herself as instructed, watching as Aaron moved to higher ground. He whistled sharply, and moments later, Rusty appeared from behind a stand of pines, trotting to his master's side. Below, the remaining outlaws had regrouped. Savannah could hear their voices, though not their words. They seemed to be arguing about their next move. "Sutton," Aaron called out, his voice carrying easily in the mountain air. "You're outgunned and surrounded. Throw down your weapons and you might live to see trial." Laughter floated up from the trees. "Nice try, Northwood, we counted. It's just you and the girl and me," came a new voice from the forest to their left. Savannah turned to see a man emerge from the trees, tall and straight-backed, with copper skin and hair in 2 long braids. He carried a Winchester rifle with practiced ease. "And us," called another voice as 2 more men appeared on the right flank, effectively surrounding the outlaw's position. Aaron smiled tightly. "Samuel Running Elk never travels alone, Sutton. Neither do I. Last chance to surrender." For answer, a flurry of gunshots erupted from the trees where the outlaws had taken cover. Aaron and his allies returned fire with deadly precision. The exchange was brief but intense. When silence fell again, Samuel Running Elk called out something in his native tongue. After a pause, one of his companions responded. "2 dead," Samuel reported to Aaron. "1 wounded." "Sutton?" Aaron asked. "The scarred one. He lives, but will not run far with a bullet in his leg." Aaron turned to Savannah. "Stay here, I'll be back shortly." She watched as he descended the slope with Samuel, while the other 2 men approached from different directions, weapons ready. 10 minutes later, they returned with Sutton stumbling between them, his hands bound behind his back and a bloody bandage around his thigh. "You've lost, Sutton," Aaron said coldly. "Tell me where to find Blackwell and I'll put in a word with the judge." Sutton spat at Aaron's feet. "Blackwell will kill me slower than any hangman if I talk." "Not if we get to him first," Aaron countered. "Your choice." The outlaw's resistance crumbled quickly when faced with the alternative of bleeding out on the mountainside. He revealed that Blackwell had established a hideout in an abandoned mining camp near the Montana-Idaho border, with plans to move on to Canada once they secured the silver map. "The locket," Savannah remembered suddenly. "I dropped it when I fled." Samuel's men were dispatched to search for it, returning triumphantly a half-hour later with the small gold pendant. Savannah clutched it gratefully, relieved that her father's legacy hadn't fallen into Blackwell's hands. With Sutton secured across a spare horse, their party continued toward Samuel's Valley. Savannah rode beside Aaron now, still processing the events of the afternoon. "How did Samuel know to find us?" she asked. "He didn't," Aaron admitted. "I was expected at his camp yesterday. When I didn't arrive, he came looking." He glanced at her, a rare smile softening his features. "He's a good friend, one of the few I've managed to keep." "You have more friends than you think," Savannah said quietly. "The doctor, the people in town who respect you." She hesitated. "Me." Aaron's eyes held hers for a moment longer than necessary. "I'm grateful for that," he said softly. They crested Buffalo Pass as the sun began to set, revealing a hidden valley nestled between mountain ridges. A dozen lodges stood in a semicircle around a central fire pit, with corrals for horses and small garden plots nearby. Children stopped their play to watch the approaching riders, while women paused in their work. A tall, slender woman with auburn hair pulled back in a practical bun stepped forward to meet them. Despite her modest frontier dress, she carried herself with unmistakable dignity. Aaron Northwood, she called, her accent distinctly Eastern. You're late and you've brought trouble with you. Samuel dismounted first. My wife, Sarah Running Elk, he introduced, the affection in his voice unmistakable as he embraced the woman. Formerly Miss Sarah Pemberton of Boston. Sarah's stern expression softened as she took in Savannah's condition. You're injured, she observed, and exhausted. Come, we'll get you settled while the men deal with their prisoner. The next few days passed in a blur of new experiences for Savannah. The Running Elk family welcomed her without reservation, installing her in a guest lodge with comfortable furs and blankets. Sarah, who had trained as a nurse before becoming a teacher, tended to Savannah's ribs with skilled hands and herbal remedies that eased the pain better than Dr. Simmons' medicines. Aaron remained in the camp, helping Samuel strengthen defenses in case Blackwell's remaining men tracked them there. Each evening he would visit Savannah, bringing news of Sutton's interrogation and plans for capturing the rest of the gang. The territorial governor has authorized a special posse, he told her on the third night, accepting a cup of tea from Sarah. 20 men, including experienced scouts from Samuel's tribe, we leave tomorrow. How long will you be gone? Savannah asked, unable to keep the concern from her voice. A week, maybe more. Aaron set down his cup. You'll be safe here with Sarah and the others. I'm not worried about me, Savannah said quietly. Blackwell has already lost 7 men. He'll be desperate. Aaron's expression softened. I've faced worse odds. Later, as Aaron walked her back to her lodge under a sky brilliant with stars, Savannah found the courage to speak what was in her heart. I wish you wouldn't go, she admitted. Or at least not so soon. My ribs are healing, but... She faltered, unsure how to express the deeper wound that would open if he left. Aaron stopped, turning to face her. In the starlight, his eyes were shadowed, unreadable. This is what I do, Savannah, he said gently. It's who I am. I know, and I wouldn't ask you to be someone else. She took a deep breath, wincing slightly at the tightness in her chest. I just want you to know that I'll be waiting when you return, if that matters to you. For a moment, Aaron was utterly still. Then, with infinite care, he raised his hand to her cheek, his calloused palm warm against her skin. It matters, he whispered. More than I can say. The kiss that followed was gentle, mindful of her injuries, yet conveyed a depth of feeling that took Savannah's breath away. When they finally parted, Aaron rested his forehead against hers. I'll come back, he promised. You'd better, she replied, smiling through sudden tears. We have unfinished business, Deputy Marshal Northwood. Morning came too quickly. The posse gathered at dawn. Aaron and Samuel, along with 18 other men, some white, some native, all armed and determined. Savannah stood with Sarah and the other women, watching as final preparations were made. Aaron sought her out before mounting, pressing something into her hand. Keep this safe for me, he said. Savannah looked down to see a simple silver ring on her palm. Aaron, it was my mother's, he explained, the only thing of value I've managed to hold onto all these years. His eyes held hers intently. I'd like to think of it as a promise for when I return. Understanding blossomed within her. Wordlessly, Savannah slipped the ring onto her finger, then reached up to touch his face, memorizing its contours. A promise, she echoed softly. The wait was agonizing. Days stretched into a week, then 10 days with no word from the posse. Savannah kept busy helping Sarah with the camp's children, teaching them reading and arithmetic in the mornings while learning Cheyenne customs and crafts in the afternoons. Her ribs continued to heal, the pain gradually subsiding to a dull ache. At night, she would stand at the valley's edge, watching the pass for any sign of returning riders. The silver ring became a talisman, something to touch when fear threatened to overwhelm her. Sarah, who understood the particular anxiety of loving a man who faced danger, offered quiet companionship during these vigils. Samuel was gone for 3 months once, she confided. Tracking renegades who had stolen horses from the reservation, I thought I would go mad with worry. How did you bear it? Savannah asked. Sarah smiled gently. By believing in his skill, his wisdom, and his promise to return to me, just as you must believe in Aaron. On the 12th day, a scout rode into camp with news. The posse had engaged Blackwell's gang at the abandoned mining camp. There had been casualties on both sides, but Blackwell himself had been captured alive. The remaining outlaws had scattered, no longer a unified threat. And the marshal? Savannah asked, her heart in her throat. Aaron Northwood, the scout's expression revealed nothing. They follow. 2 days behind me. Those 2 days were the longest of Savannah's life. She barely slept, jumping at every sound, straining to hear hoofbeats that didn't come. By the second evening, dark thoughts had taken hold. Perhaps Aaron was among the casualties. Perhaps he lay wounded somewhere between here and the mining camp, perhaps. The children's excited cries alerted her first. Savannah rushed from her lodge to see riders approaching the valley, 7 or 8 men, moving slowly. In the fading light, she couldn't make out individual faces. Sarah appeared at her side, a supportive hand on her arm. "Come, let's meet them." They walked together to the valley entrance, where the returning warriors were being greeted with songs and embraces. Savannah scanned the group anxiously, her heart sinking as she failed to spot Aaron's familiar figure. Then the crowd parted, and she saw him. Aaron sat his horse wearily, his left arm bound in a sling, his face gaunt with exhaustion. But he was alive. Beautifully, wonderfully alive. Their eyes met across the distance, and something in his expression lightened. He dismounted slowly, wincing as his boots hit the ground. Savannah wanted to run to him but found herself frozen, overwhelmed by the rush of emotions. Aaron had no such hesitation. He crossed the space between them with steady strides, stopping just a foot away. "You're hurt," Savannah managed, gesturing to his arm. "It's nothing. Bullet grazed me." His eyes never left her face. "You're still here. I promised I would be." A smile touched his lips, chasing away the weariness. "So you did." Without another word, Aaron drew her gently into his embrace, his good arm wrapping around her waist as he buried his face in her hair. Savannah held him tightly, mindful of his injury but unwilling to let go. "Blackwell?" she asked against his chest, in custody, being transported to Fort Benton for trial. Aaron pulled back slightly to look at her. "It's over, Savannah. You're safe now." The realization washed over her like a warm rain. After weeks of fear and uncertainty, the nightmare had ended. She was free to plan a future that she hoped would include the man standing before her. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Aaron touched the ring on her finger, his expression serious yet tender. "That depends. A U.S. Marshal offered me a position in Helena, better pay, more authority." "Helena," Savannah repeated, "where my father's silver mine is located. A coincidence I thought worth mentioning." His thumb traced gentle circles on her hand. "Of course, I haven't accepted yet. Wanted to discuss it with someone whose opinion matters to me." Savannah's heart swelled with joy and a tentative hope. "And what would you like that person's opinion to be?" Aaron's smile deepened. "I'd like her to say that Helena sounds promising, that perhaps we could build something there together." He hesitated, suddenly vulnerable. "That perhaps she feels for me what I've come to feel for her." "And what is that exactly?" Savannah pressed, needing to hear the words. Aaron lifted his hand to her face, his touch reverent. "That I love her. That somehow, in the midst of danger and pain, I found the one person I want to protect and cherish for the rest of my days." Tears blurred Savannah's vision as she placed her hand over his. "Then her opinion would be that Helena sounds perfect, that building a life together sounds even better." She took a breath, her voice steadying. "And that she loves you too, Aaron Northwood, more than she thought possible." The kiss they shared was witnessed by the entire camp, accompanied by good-natured cheers and a few knowing smiles. Savannah barely noticed, lost in the certainty that she had found her home not in a place, but in a person. They were married 2 weeks later in a ceremony that blended Christian traditions with Cheyenne customs. Sarah helped Savannah fashion a wedding dress from white buckskin adorned with beadwork, while Samuel stood as Aaron's witness. The territorial judge, summoned from Helena for Blackwell's trial, performed the official marriage. As the celebration continued into the evening, Aaron led Savannah away from the festivities to a quiet spot overlooking the valley. "I have something for you," he said, withdrawing a folded document from his pocket. "A wedding gift." Savannah opened it curiously, then gasped. "This is a deed to land near Helena." Aaron nodded. 500 acres, including the entrance to your father's silver mine. I filed the claim in your name while in Helena. It's official, recognized by the territorial government. But how did you afford this? Savannah asked, stunned by his generosity. The reward for Blackwell's capture, Aaron explained. $5,000. Enough for the land and to build us a proper home. He took her hands in his. A place where no one will ever hurt you again. Savannah remembered those words from their first meeting when she lay broken and afraid, and Aaron had lifted her with such gentle care. She had believed him then, against all reason. Now she knew with certainty that he would keep that promise for all their days together. "I don't need the silver to feel wealthy," she said softly. "I already have everything I want." "As do I," Aaron agreed, drawing her into his arms as the stars began to appear overhead. "As do I." Epilogue. Helena, Montana Territory, 1885. Savannah Northwood stood on the wide porch of their ranch house, watching as her husband guided their 5-year-old son on his first real horse, a gentle pony with a patient disposition. Little Thomas was the image of his father, from his serious gray eyes to the determined set of his jaw as he concentrated on Aaron's instructions. Beside Savannah, 3-year-old Margaret clutched her mother's skirt, her auburn curls blowing in the spring breeze. "Mama, when can I ride like Tommy?" she asked, her voice carrying the impatience common to all Northwood children. "When you're a little bigger, sweetheart," Savannah promised, smoothing her daughter's hair. "For now, you can ride with Papa or me." 6 years had transformed the raw land into a thriving ranch. The silver mine had indeed proved valuable, providing capital for a comfortable home, good livestock, and investments that would secure their children's future. More importantly, it had allowed Aaron to resign his marshal's badge and devote himself to ranching and family, though he still served as an unofficial advisor to the Helena Sheriff's Department when particularly difficult cases arose. Savannah touched the locket that still hung around her neck, now empty of its precious map but filled instead with miniature portraits of her children. Her father's legacy had brought her not just financial security, but the family she had always longed for. Aaron completed Tommy's lesson and lifted the boy from the saddle, setting him down with a proud pat on the shoulder. As Tommy ran toward the barn to help the ranch hands with their chores, Aaron walked to the porch, swinging little Margaret up into his arms as she reached for him. "How did he do?" Savannah asked, though she had witnessed the entire lesson. "Like he was born to it," Aaron replied, the pride evident in his voice. "He'll be out riding all of us by next summer." Savannah leaned against her husband's free shoulder, content in the simple perfection of the moment. "I had a letter from Sarah today. She and Samuel are coming to visit next month with their new baby." "Good," Aaron said, smiling. "It's been too long since we've seen them." As the afternoon sun bathed the ranch in golden light, Savannah reflected on the journey that had brought them here from a terrified, injured girl and a solitary lawman to partners in every sense of the word. The broken ribs had healed long ago, but the promise made that day had only grown stronger with time. "No one will hurt you again." It was a vow Aaron had kept, not just through protection but through love that healed wounds far deeper than physical pain. Together, they had built a life neither could have imagined alone, a legacy of love that would endure long after the silver mine had yielded its last treasure. As if reading her thoughts, Aaron pressed a kiss to her temple. "Happy?" he asked softly. Savannah smiled, watching as Tommy emerged from the barn, proudly leading one of the ranch dogs on a makeshift leash. Margaret squirmed to be put down so she could join her brother's adventure. "More than I ever dreamed possible," she answered truthfully, turning to meet her husband's gaze. "Every single day." Aaron's smile, still rare enough to be precious, warmed her heart as it had since that first night in his cabin. "Then my life's work is complete," he said simply. Hand in hand, they watched their children play in the yard, surrounded by the home they had built together, a sanctuary formed not of logs and nails, but of promises kept and love freely given. For Savannah Jensen Northwood, who had once thought herself completely alone in the world, it was more than enough. It was everything.